All right, one of the very last things to seal up the camper from the outside is now done. And that's these beautiful corner caps right there, these front corner caps made of steel, incredibly strong, take tree branches, and quite beautiful. Let's go take a closer look. Yes, so after completely building this Total Composites camper from scratch, it's now time to go ahead and fully sealed up with these beautiful corner caps. And these are the last part of the entire Total Composites box to seal up after starting from really just a scratch box on a bare chassis and building this whole thing up, corner cap to corner cap. And you may ask a little bit like, why am I using a different corner cap on the front than all the rest of the corner caps? I will go into that in a little more detail here, and also some of the benefits of that and how come I did it the way I did it. So with these beautiful new steel front corner caps. So let's dive in a little bit. You can see the Total Composites plastic caps here. They're really great. They fit right over the protrusions just perfectly, but with the garage doors built, the windows in, the skylights in, now this entry door, which is the last thing I've been waiting on, which is really great that that's the last thing that's done. But now you got to get these front corner caps on the upper corners. You can see the lower ones look great, and those are the standard Total Composites ones. But these upper ones, I wanted to go ahead and make sure I did something a little bit different and stronger. You can see some of the rivets here in some of these corners. They land right over where the corner caps are. They make the corner caps stick up just a little bit. So I drilled those out, both in any of the corners, bottom, top, and also in the top ones here, because it pulls on the wire when it runs down the bottom where it's going to exit. I made sure I not only sealed those wires, but also glued in a little bit of a mount that holds those wires in place and make sure I've got a little loop around them so that way there's not any force on those wires as they sit into those spaces. And you can see the Total Composites protrusion here. It just barely covers over the protrusion itself, and I just wasn't really comfortable with that. And I could have figured out a little way, had a couple ideas to how to make sure that was sealed up well. But Curtis over at Hunter R&B was able to make up some corner caps for me and made up a batch of them while he was at it. I went ahead and drilled holes for the corner marker lights, which are supposed to be by law in each of the corners in the front, so that's where I put them. And then of course went ahead and scuffed these up, lined out where the corners can be cut off, trimmed off to match up with the protrusions themselves. Each one was just a little bit different, so I drew straight edges or lines across to do those, and got these not only scraped up and cleaned up so I could go ahead and put some primer on them, but also so I could make sure, of course, they get glued into place. And you may ask too, like, why didn't I just put a marker light right down that nice, beautiful corner on the front there? Really just because the law says you're supposed to have one on both the front and also the side, and not just in the corner. So that's how I did it, just make sure it's following the law as is required. And then of course clean these all up, smooth them all out, and then it's time to glue them into place, and that's purely just a lot of glue, adhesive to put it in place, and then seal up the edges. Yep, you know what it means when I'm putting gloves on again. No, it is not a medical exam. It is time to start gluing some things up. And that means another conclusion of a part of this project. Anyways, I don't need a lot of adhesive sealant because this is already glued on, this cap. All I need to do is make sure I'm fully sealed up. And make sure I don't get my hair in there. All right, I'm gonna let this dry up a little bit, get all the rest of them, the other side, come back, and then smooth it out. Here they are. Yes, I've got the lights out for right now with their little rubber gaskets. These have already been glued in. They're already sealed up all the way around. But what I want to do, anyways, let's take a look at them for a minute, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do. You can see they're durable as heck. So these are definitely going to take a tree branch or something else. Fortunately, I hope that's a good thing. But they're probably not going to be what's going to break. And that's going to take definitely reinforce this whole front corner here, this front top corner. What I want to do, I can still smell a little bit of the paint and the adhesive. There's just a primer paint. It's going to be another final paint that's going to go over it. They're quite beautiful. And what I'm going to do, you can see these wells. Look how gorgeous this is. Curtis, who made these up at Hunter R&B, he will be very excited to know that you love these welds just like I do too, because look at that. They are lovely. It's very well done. Quite a beautiful piece of artwork. So what I want to do, as you can see here in these corners, there's still a little bit of an abrupt edge there. So if a tree, just from wind, dust, and dirt building up on the tail end, and of course here on the front end, the leading edge, tree branch or so getting you know, stuck in here. Not really stuck, but just caught. I just want to give them some more adhesive. Since these are pretty thick, they're durable. They're made of 3/16 steel, probably way bigger than they need to be. But that partly is what enabled Curse to get such a nice weld. But I'm going to go ahead and add some more adhesive sealant very carefully on the inside here, just smooth it out. And so that way I get a nice, more smooth, gradual transition. And that's it. That's what I'm going to try to do here. Okay, so here we go. I have a tiny, tiny little bit of adhesive sealant left in this tube. That's why I'm going to do this right now. And I'm just going to go ahead and smooth this out, or get as much of this out as I can, and then smooth it out. You're going to have to go definitely to another tube. But while I've got a little bit left in the tube here, let's use it up. And the adhesive sealant that glued these down is several days cured, so that's great. You know, it's not going to be my prettiest. And there she is. That's all that's left of that tube. But hey, at least we got what I could out of it. Sometimes I find it too, if you can push it again, you get a little more. Sometimes you get 3 of these out of there, and it's not even really worth it after that. But hey, there's a tiny bit. So that's great. Now let's go put our tube in there, get a little more added, smooth this out, and then we'll go do the other one. I always try to use up all of this adhesive sealant because it is expensive, and so I try to make sure I put it to use. I also am using adhesive sealant that's way stronger than it needs to be. It can hold this whole corner cap on, and so it's more than I need, but it's what I have available, and I'm reaching the end of really all the things I need to have glued up. So I'm using up the adhesive sealants that I have, saving the few tubes of what I need for some other things for those. Hey, at least I can use this stuff up while I have it open. So now the question really becomes too is, exactly what's my smoothest path here. You can tell I'm starting from kind of the bottom, come around to this side here, in part because it's where kind of have the thickest amount that needs to be deposited, so I can smooth that out. I'm just trying to create a nice smooth, like 1/4 inch fillet on all these edges here to keep the wind and the water blown away. I'm not going for absolute perfection here. You can see it just takes a lot of continuous pushing of the adhesive sealant, smoothing it out. It's very taffy and sticky, and so it's just a matter of smoothing and pushing in these edges here. Everything's already sealed up with these corner caps with adhesive sealant behind it. But in these corners here, you can see where, like this one, where I have the need for a lot of, I'll call it just purely filler. I'm trying to do exactly that, just fill. And that is it. It's a lot to deposit in here. So I'll come back in and clean this up. Now I'm getting where it's tricky. I'm using both gloves, not one that I can use to transfer the other. And this stuff is like taffy. Make sure I don't get my shirt into this. Don't want the VanTripping shirt to get dirty, do we? Again, I want to make this as smooth as possible. Really get into these corners here, where it really needs a lot, as much as possible, while still keeping this clean and smooth. Yep, and it seems like as you smooth it out, you just keep creating a little more mess, but I'm getting there. I'm almost getting done with all this. Trying to make sure I don't have not just spots for wind to catch, but also water to build up, dust to build up even. And I am going to come back over this before I paint it and sand everything down. So I don't have to quite get this perfect, but of course I want to reduce the amount of work later. So that my sanding is really just to rough up the surface so that that the paint will adhere well and clean up any of these little rougher edges or little strings that come off from the adhesive sealant. So I just want to get it so it's 90%. Well, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this one. Let's go work on the other while we have this tube open. Ugh. Oftentimes you think you can smooth it out and then you just make it worse. Let's stop there. Ugh. So these corner caps were completely glued down on the inside. I want to make sure, of course, all these edges and corners are completely sealed in so that no water or dirt or anything just builds up in those edges, and I'm smoothing it out to make them as aerodynamic as possible. All right, that's pretty cool. Now we get to smooth all of this caulk out, this adhesive sealant out. So let's see. I think I'm going to start. Let's start at my leading edges and work my way up around to the top here.
So even though this is somewhat of a repeat before, I'm also going to go over a little more why this matters for the painting later.
Get nice and smooth, nice and filled in all the way around. Okay, now I've got that all the way pretty well smoothed out. Don't want water to puddle up anywhere. It's a really tricky balance too of getting everything smooth, but also just without just creating more work, but just keep going over it without adding any real value. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm gonna take these gloves off. Let's go work on the other one. I'm gonna take the gloves off so I don't transfer any of this goop as I transfer over here. And getting these off, all this goop on is not so easy. Look at that, just got a little bit on me. Darn it. Tiny bit, but it is not so easy sometimes. Okay, now this towel, I need to get some alcohol on it and just wipe up this little bit of excess, but I'm going to walk over here first and take care of that side. Okay, you can see this looks pretty good. Yeah, there's a little more smoothing out that I can do. I'm going to come back and do that here in a minute, but for right now, that looks pretty good. Now let's get this other one done. And of course, when doing this other one, since I'm up in a ladder, I had in my back pocket a bunch of extra gloves, so I can use those, have them handy, have paper towels and alcohol handy, so I can quickly just keep going to work here. And also, down below there, I've got a trash can where I can just throw this stuff right into it, so that way I don't have to worry about trying to manage this stuff and getting off the ladder with it. So here we go.
And you might notice here the one thing I'm doing is building this up in layers so that this adhesive sealant has several days to cure before I add the next layer, so that way it can be really strong.
All right, so just gone back over this with another glove again, and I smoothed it out. And one thing that's a real challenge here is you keep working it and you keep kind of making it harder and harder on yourself, and you find these little tiny spots where you'd love to smooth it out, and then you find you just kind of smooth it out, and then you find, well, I can smooth it out a little more. What I'm going to do too is I could also add a little bit more into some of these areas. They're fully sealed up. It's just more of there's an abrupt change here, and I'd rather have that be a smooth change. So I probably have to build up some more bead, but I also don't want to add too much at once. Generally, you only add about 1/4 to 1/2 inch of a bead at a time, which is more or less what I've done here.
So now these are all glued into place, and of course they've been cut down, sanded, and primed, and these beautiful welds again from Curtis over at Hunter R&V. Thank you so much, Curtis. These look really great. I'm stoked to have these in place. Now I'm going to go ahead and get the camper sanded down and prepped to have it painted, and that's going to make it look really awesome. We got those cool color paint schemes that I showed you in my last video, and this whole entire thing is going to be painted down, so it'll smooth out all these edges with both the sanding as well as with the painting. But nonetheless, these are going to add a lot of reinforcement at the front corners here from tree branches and things like that, and add a lot of robust protection at the very front corners. So thanks again for watching and subscribing. Certainly there's a lot more coming up, not just to paint the camper, but also of course I'm finishing out the build out and the plumbing and electrical systems that I'm building on site, as well as also my electrical actuated doors and other things that I will share more details about here coming up very soon. So please do subscribe, and you'll catch all the rest of those videos that are coming up, and do share with others who also may enjoy watching these videos on my expedition camper build. That is a complete DIY project. Thank you.